Hey guys, we got a special midweek episode of the Higher Line podcast. I've got my good friend Dr. Renk, Dr. William Sidney Renk, to talk about COVID virus.
Listen close if you want to stay alive.
Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higher Line podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Higher Line podcast. We've got papers all over the table and shirts. Now, these are not here for sales purposes. We're experimenting with some audio stuff, but today we're talking about some important stuff. We've got a friend of mine out, Dr. Bill, and I'm not going to touch you because, Anyway, hold on real quick. Yep. Man, I'm literally going to be bleeding by the time we're done with this. This is the 38th time I put this on today.
Not good. Not good for the voice.
True, lotion me.
That's right.
I'm just joking. So we met at a training class, you and I.
Yep. Alpha range.
Yeah, you are into the training world. What's your dovetail into that before we jump into the whole COVID thing?
So
you got your blue line shirt on.
That's right. Support back the blue. So probably I don't know, maybe 9 years ago now. I was walking off the golf course.
Oh, a doctor golfing. Oh,
yep.
How cliche is that?
Right. But I just, I was like, this is boring. And for some reason, I thought,
Todd, I'll see you next week.
That's right. And I thought, what's the opposite of golfing? I'm going to shoot a gun. So I went to a local gun shop, looked around, saw a .44 Magnum revolver.
Of course.
That was the first gun I ever bought.
Dirty Harry, huh?
Dirty Harry, .44
Big
Magnum revolver.
29. Smith & Wesson model 29.
Yeah. 20. Yeah. I thought you meant my 29.
Oh, yes.
And then they had someone there that brought a bag of guns to the range, and you could shoot like 20 or 30 of them and decide. And then there's the local range in Rockford, Pine Tree.
Sure.
I went there and followed some guys around, and one thing led to another. I started doing competition, and I gave up golf, and I got into competitive shooting and self-defense kind of things.
I dig that.
Yeah, so
side note on that, if you go to like Instagram and you look up golf photos, there's no hot chicks in bikinis with golf clubs. You look up gun stuff, there's a lot of pictures of chicks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's more visually appealing as well.
Can be.
So, yeah.
Can be.
So that's how I got into it, and then there are a lot of good gun guys around here, right? Mm-hmm. And so one thing led to another, and I kind of have ADD. So once I focus in on one thing, then I just go crazy. So gave up golf, got into shooting, and here we are, still doing that.
Do you get any pushback? So we'll talk real quick. You're a medical doctor.
Yes.
Because I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but a lot of medical profession, we automatically think, they golf and go on their yachts and all that stuff. Do you find any pushback from your colleagues? Do they not know?
No, I think it's pretty unique, but there are I know several docs that.
Mark, the anesthesiologist that comes and trains, have you ever met him?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and there's a couple guys out of Rockford that are avid, they're medical doctors and avid shooters and do competition stuff. So right, it is unique. There aren't a whole lot of us in the medical community, and I'm a pediatrician, so. The American Academy of Pediatrics stance on gun and interviewing people on guns and how do you have guns in the home?
How do you feel about that?
I don't ask.
You don't subscribe to that? No. Okay.
No. I mean, I think in the detail that.
If you saw some type of abuse or something like that, that's another
100%. Yeah, 100%. But I think I talk about overall safety and things like that. I talk about bike helmets and wearing a helmet on your skateboard, seat belts, because that's going to be way more prevalent than, any in-home.
Right, I'm sure you see lots of busted knees and broken arms from skateboards. Or broken heads for not wearing your helmet when you ride a bike. That's going to be
definitely more prevalent than gun accidents in the home. And, so I haven't really dove into prying into people's life like that.
It's a little obtuse in a sense of, no offense, you're a smart guy. I don't go to the doctor about my political viewpoints or my hobbies. I'm there because I'm ill or my loved one is.
Yeah, I think where they want us to, delve into that is at well child checkups and things like that.
Preemptive care.
Yeah, and truthfully, if I covered everything that they want us to delve into,
Who's they?
Like the American Academy of Pediatrics, okay. If I had to screen for absolutely everything they think that we should, everybody's thing is, well, this just takes 2 seconds. That just takes 5 seconds. Well, there's 400 things and they take 20 seconds. So I pick and choose.
While you were at it, let's do this, let's do that.
Yeah, I pick and choose what I think is more concerning at the time.
And you got to know your clients,
right? And since I am, Pro 2A, and I think a lot of my patients know that. So, law enforcement and fire and first responders, I take care of quite a few of those kids, and I guess I just assume that they're good people, and if they have kids around, when I do ask. I don't think I've ever had a person say, no, I don't keep them locked up. Or, when they have kids around, there's too much stuff that's on the news. People are, accidents do happen.
Sure, yeah, too much.
When I have asked, it hasn't been an issue.
Where did you go to medical school?
So I'm an Iowa boy, born and raised, and then went to University of Iowa for medical school, and then up to Wisconsin, UW-Madison for residency, my PEDS residency, and I've been in Rockford for 15 years.
Okay. Rockford, for those of you that don't know, was one of the largest cities in Illinois for years. It was the second for a long time.
Now I think Aurora passed that. I think we're third.
Third, maybe even a little farther down. Naperville, I think, beat you too.
Maybe, yeah.
It's northern, west of Chicago, between Iowa and Chicago. It was a epicenter in the 30s, 40s, 50s for manufacturing and that type of stuff.
The screw capital.
Was that what it was? Screw capital?
It was nuts and bolts and screws during World War I and II that kind of started.
They held all the planes and tanks together.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
So, did you always want to be a doctor? Did you, as a young boy, think I want to be the guy with the black bag? What got you to?
Well, both my parents are teachers, so I was going to be my mom's a biology teacher, was a biology teacher, so I was going to be a biology teacher and a football coach. And then
you played football?
Yeah, and then as I got more into school, I just kind of geared toward that. One of my big mentors growing up was a urologist back in my hometown, and
not many people say they have a urologist as a mentor.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? He was my mentor, and so I was going to be a urologist, until I really found out what most of your day is, and I thought,
So he was mentoring you through college?
Yeah, well, junior high, high school, college. My parents got divorced when I was young. My dad moved to Texas, and he had 2 daughters and not a son, and he played football at Iowa, and so we kind of matched that way, and so I wanted to follow in his footsteps. So I was going to initially be a biology teacher and football coach, and then a urologist, and
So you realized that you had to play with Dick all day,
and prostate exams were high on the list too.
Before you leave, we got to talk about that. I got to have you do a little quick check.
Great.
You can use, this is lubey enough.
Okay.
Or we can use the gunfighter gun oil.
Both, definitely. Yeah.
So you've been practicing for 15 years?
Well, in Rockford, but I've been a pediatrician for 26.
Okay, so you've done it long enough where you've watched kids grow up and they're your patients from birth to...
Yeah, now even 15 years just in Rockford, I'm taking care of some
where they say
babies of...
I took care of your mom, or I took care of your dad. That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm
that's pretty
old
heavy.
enough dude that's even starting to happen.
So I'm trying to paint a picture here. You've been around this stuff a while.
Yes.
And a lot's changed in 25 years of medicine. Like, what are some big things that have changed in practice in medicine that, like, just stick out to you, like, in your life?
Well, I've actually, vaccine controversies and things. So I have seen some of those that were true, that panned out.
Can't stop touching my face because I normally go like this, and I keep thinking about
COVID, right? Don't do it. That's right.
Vaccines.
There was initially a vaccine that came out right when I started that appeared to have some side effects. And I mean, it was out for, I don't even, maybe 6 months, a year. And then like.
What was it for?
Rotavirus. It was an oral one. Or it was an oral injectable. I can't remember.
What is rotavirus?
Rotavirus is the most common form of vomiting diarrhea in kids. It causes hospitalization.
Okay.
So when it first came out, there was a higher rate of bowel obstruction with it, actually. And so, boom, they took it off the market.
Was it causing dehydration or something?
No, apparently the vaccine caused enough inflammation in the gut, the immune response, that kids would have obstructions sometimes. So they immediately took that off the market. And then, several years later, I'm not really sure, maybe 5-6 years later, it came back out when they reformulated it. Now we're not having those issues and things. So that was a real thing. So when there is a real known relationship between a vaccine, a cause-effect relationship,
What made you, when I asked changes, you went right to vaccines? Is this?
Well, that's because that was the first one.
Okay.
That was the big one. And a lot of people, vaccine controversies and things like that.
Let's talk about that for a minute. That's kind of a big thing. I have family members that are completely anti-vaxxers. As far as I'm hearing people now saying that this whole COVID-19 business is the government trying to force vaccines. I got a message from a dear family friend late last night that said, Mick, what's your take on this? And this is kind of a broad question, but he goes, I think this is all going to end in door-to-door forced vaccinations. We're like, show me your papers, you'll get the shot now, that's... And I just was like, I'm sleeping.
Bother me tomorrow.
Right.
Well, here's the thing with vaccines. I could give you amoxicillin today for a strep throat, and you could have a severe allergic reaction and die. So, right, you're putting a foreign substance into your body, and you could have an adverse reaction to it. It's studied enough.
I think your point, just for the people listening and watching, is you're saying there's a lot of things beyond vaccinations that we ingest for good reasons,
right,
that can have adverse reactions.
Exactly. And I think the risk of the diseases that we're vaccinating, far outweigh the risks of the vaccine.
That's kind of the main premise, right?
And right, exactly. It's a global health kind of thing. So, sure, if the chance is 1 in a billion and you're that one person, that stinks. It's 100% for you, right? So, there isn't, nothing's 100%, but it is the risk, of influenza, is the risk of COVID, is the risk of, we immunize babies against, the only 2 kids I've ever seen die of meningitis under 2 weren't vaccinated.
I've got a really good family friend right now. We grew up with her. Her son is a high schooler that's been hospitalized for the last 3 weeks with meningitis.
Yeah. And
serious stuff.
Yeah, completely. And so, none of this stuff is, a government, some conspiracy theory.
He has been paid by the government to say that.
Exactly. And each time I say that, I get more money. So you'll hear it a lot. No.
They used to give him golf outings.
Right, can't do that. Can't even give me a pen anymore. What the heck? I don't know. I've just seen enough happen with kids, and people who don't vaccinate. That's fine. I always tell parents, you're the team owner. I'm just the team manager. So I'm just giving you information. It's your pride and joy. If that's the risk you want to take, I'll still take care of it.
People's fear is that it'll come to the point where, okay, what about when the team owner, and this is a stretch, but the team owner wants to spank their kids. Team owner wants to spank their kids with a belt. team owner wants to burn their kid with a cigarette, and I'm stretching, but that's,
Right.
it's my kid, you're not going to tell me how to do this. So then, like, we as society step in. I'm not being preachy
Right.
to you, but
No.
just talking.
Yeah.
We step in and say, well, you're not feeding your kid. Your kid's living off, no parent would be allowed by law to feed their kids Coca-Cola or beer, like as the only liquids that
Right.
courts would step in and say that was abuse.
Yeah, neglect,
So I think that's the fear. If you don't do this, you are abusing your kids. You're not doing right because science says they need this immunization. I think that's the fear people have.
Yeah, but I mean, even right now, you don't have to vaccinate your child. I mean, there's religious exemptions. There's, a paper in Illinois that you can sign for whatever reason you don't now. Some people are trying to reverse that.
Right.
But I don't, you might have to homeschool your child, or.
There's a repercussion.
Yeah. But you don't, so there might be hoops you have to jump through and it might be inconvenient for you. But if that's what you want to do, I don't think.
I think immunizations are pretty cool. I don't have any friends that died of polio. That's
Right.
what I always say to people. Like, I don't know anybody with the polio.
Right.
Or tuberculosis. I don't know any tuberculosis patients. I
Right.
don't know one.
Right. So I think, sure, you can always find in these statistics that maybe I'll spout off later.
Oh, we're going to spout something.
You can always find something that's going to back up your stance. So I understand, and you have to make an individual, determination if your risk benefit ratio and do what's best for you and your family and your beliefs, and that's cool. My partner in pediatrics in Rockford is the same way. We think, hey, some care is better than no care. There's some docs, if you don't vaccinate your kid, you can't come in my waiting room. You can't come.
Because they don't want that kid there because COVID sneeze.
Great.
Hold on a second here, guys. Excuse me.
At least he's behind that big light. The light caught it.
Drew's got the COVID sneeze.
Thank God.
They don't want them in there because they don't want to bring untreated people into the herd.
Right, and I think too, it's a belief too. If you don't, I believe in. I'm not saying as in me. I believe in vaccines. If you don't, we have a fundamental difference. You won't like me. Don't come to my practice.
I see. So it's more of it's more of a being a good salesperson.
Right.
Let's not build a relationship together because we're going to butt heads.
Right. So this is just the beginning, of medicines or whatever, So some docs are like that. I've always been a believer, some care is better than none. So, sure, if you don't get vaccines and your kid 18-month-old comes with a fever, I'm probably going to do a lot more tests than I would do in a kid that was fully vaccinated. But that's your choice.
There was a
you own
doc
the team.
in a town I grew up in. I don't want to say his name, but you could go there and just go, and you left every time with an antibiotic. Not that you would go to get my shoulder hurts. You left with a Vicodin or whatever.
Right.
And so people just knew this guy. Like, if you didn't feel good and you wanted access to antibiotics, you just went in his office and basically you feel warm. There's 30-day supply of whatever it's what he did. He just wrote scripts.
Yeah.
I think he's retired now, but that's one end of the spectrum. And you got other people now that are so afraid of problems with government, with their license, with insurance. They don't want to do anything like that. Now it can be the opposite, right?
Oh, right. Especially, with controlled substances are monitored, beyond belief. And so nobody really does that with that anymore. And luckily in pediatrics,
you did bring me my stuff though, right?
I did.
Okay, cool.
Really? You got to tell everyone?
Oh, shit.
You're kind of a big deal. It's on.
Well, he brought me Bang Lemon Drop.
That's right.
Super creatine.
Super creatine. So I,
Yeah, you do some working out a little bit.
every once in a while, I do a push-up. Steroid. I don't do that. It's bad for you. No. But so
Steroid jokes.
and actually, I think when I first started, so 26 years ago, or whatever, people wanted antibiotics they sneezed once. Well, my last doctor always gave me antibiotics.
Not realizing.
But now, truthfully, I mean, my parents even know I have the 2-week rule. You know, if you have a runny nose and cough, most viral infections go away within 10 to 14 days on their own without any medicine. So I have a lot of parents that will come in and they'll actually say, we waited 2 weeks.
It was 10 to 14 days.
Right.
It was 10 to 14 days ago.
Right.
They know the...
So I know that I said that to that mom or dad. They listened, and now they're... What they're really saying is, dude, I waited 2 weeks. It's not gone. You better, give me my medicine before I leave. And, I mean, truthfully, I usually end up I have the 2-week rule. So... now I think people don't want medicine if they don't need it, especially antibiotics. So, and I think they realize that for their kids most of the time too is, it probably is viral. It probably will go away, and your body will eventually get immune to it.
It seems like a pretty fast change in most big industries, medicine, law enforcement, education. Things take forever to change. And I remember when we were kids, like I just said, that doctor, man, it was like anytime you were sick. I remember I was very susceptible to. I'd get tonsillitis and strep as a kid.
Yeah.
And we didn't do shit. Had tea with honey in it.
Right.
And I know other kids like, oh, you got a sore throat, and it was immediately like moms that have the stuff in their cupboard, and they would, administer the stuff to their kids, not knowing the long-term ramifications. But you just said it. You said now people are much more. I don't know what the good word is. They're just not handing the shit out like M&Ms.
Right.
And that seemed like that popped off like just in the last 5 to 10 years, where it went from like, hand me my script to now.
Now don't if I don't need it. And Or I'll tell parents too. I'll say I think it's just a cold. Why don't you give it 10 to 14 days? If it's no better in 10 to 14 days, call me. I'll phone you something in. And I say that every day. And literally, I don't really know what that. Less than 5 people a month call me and say...
Because by the time they get around to calling you back, the kid's healthy. Yeah.
Right. So when I do say that, not very many people call me back. And when they do, I mean, it probably is legit. If you've had a cough and cold for more than 2 weeks and it's not going away, you probably developed some nose sinus thing, and a trial of antibiotics is warranted. But I say it a lot, and a lot of people don't call me back. So it works.
I try not to get sick.
That's prevention is key. You
were telling me, and I've been doing it, D3.
D3.
Yeah.
Yes. So vitamin D, and especially in the Midwest in the winter when we never see the sun, most people are vitamin D deficient. And now...
And these aren't like bullshit Facebook world... greenearth.com bullshit.
No.
It's legit studies from...
Yeah. And
science is nice.
Yeah, science is nice sometimes. Especially in the Midwest in the winter. And now it's not just normal, but people want high normal levels do better than low normal levels. So, there's been studies in children and adults that higher doses of vitamin D prevent anywhere from respiratory illnesses to several forms of cancer. Obviously, vitamin D is important in calcium, phosphorus absorption, bone. So that's the big thing that people know with calcium absorption, vitamin D. That's why vitamin D enriched milk for kids. So it's important in that. But we're also finding a lot of things from enhancing your immune system to preventing cancer. So, you find a big range of what should be the proper dose. I think the vast majority of people say between 1,000 and 4,000 international units per day for adults 18 and older. I saw one study in kids, 800 international units for kids under 16, I think that was. But for adults, 1,000 to 4,000. I think most people settle around that 2,000 per day.
Can you take too much?
You can, because a lot of vitamins are water soluble. So if you just don't use them, you whiz them out. But there are certain vitamins, vitamin D being one, that's fat soluble, so you can store it in fat, and then you can't have toxic, side effects to that. So you definitely don't want to overdose. And it does seem like it's better, at least in the studies I've read. find some that said different, but lower doses every day is better than some people take like one
monster.
50,000 once a. That's been reported to have tendency to have a little bit more side effects and not as good as low doses every day.
I like
that. So if you want to, and it also depends on your underlying health conditions, anything like that. So with anything, consult your physician kind of thing. But I would say general knowledge is right around that 2,000 mark for the most benefit with the least risk.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah, so.
That's kind of been my take in adulthood, is just stay healthy by eating good vitamins, good beer at night, good sleep.
And exercise.
Oh, of course, sure.
100%. There's even studies that show that, in mild cases of depression or anxiety, activity and exercise was equivalent to Lexapro. I can't remember which medicine, but an antidepressant. And so, weekly regular exercise was just as good as antidepressants in some studies with mild to moderate depression kind of thing. So
I believe it.
And we've all done that. You haven't worked out for a couple weeks, you feel bad. And
actually never had that happen, Doc.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
Well, I have. But yeah, and then you start exercising, you think, and all of a sudden all these changes from physically to mentally, sleep better, all those kind of things. So, it does. I think a lot of times too, people are overwhelmed by, well, I don't have an hour and a half. Take the steps,
right.
At work. Don't take the elevator.
Bust out 50 push-ups while you're waiting for the toast to be cooked.
Right, exactly. And I have there's a path around our office, and I try, when weather permitting, just walk for 15, 20 minutes during lunch. And it's amazing, this little lap thing we have. On the site, and it could be just all mind over matter thing, but it seems like on the second lap of this trail, I always start, after the second lap, I physically feel better.
Oh, a lot energized.
Yeah, like when I first go out there and walk, my legs are tight, I feel bleh. And then after that second lap, my body physically feels better. Yeah. And mentally so even in the middle of the day, and that takes 20 minutes, I think. So over my lunch hour, I try to do that. So
while eating a hoagie.
Or a ho-ho Twinkie. But they're carb-free Twinkies.
You're not eating that crap.
No.
COVID. COVID-19 means 19 is what?
So Corona, I think there was something going around that, like on the back of Lysol, it said kills coronavirus. So coronavirus is a well-known virus, a family of viruses. There are some of these that are just in humans, and there are some of these that are just in animals. And they usually don't cross. The animal coronavirus stays in the animals, and the human stays in the human kind of thing. Some people, if they're our age or older, will remember the SARS thing back in early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
That was COVID-2. This is COVID-19. So the SARS thing back then, it was definitely, it wasn't a pandemic, it was an epidemic. I can't remember the exact numbers, but less than 10 countries maybe. But that was a COVID virus, and so they're out there. But this isn't. So it's a new. So people are saying it's a novel virus. It's a new virus to that family. It's like your uncle.
So when somebody reads novel, that's what it means, is that it's new.
New. It's a new coronavirus.
And does it mean new that it's never existed, or new that we've never documented it?
No, it's never existed in humans. So they think how it morphed.
Is that called a zoological?
A zoonosis.
Zoonosis, okay.
And is that how?
I don't know. You're the doctor.
Did they name zoos after, or how did that all start?
I have no idea.
But animal zoo, see?
Okay.
So, they think so. In a lot of these epidemics and stuff, have originated in markets like this one did, or where animals and humans are closely intermatched. So I believe this is a bat virus that, so a bat virus got together with a human virus and they had babies. And so it morphed into something that could get into a human then.
Crazy.
And so the whole family of coronas is out there. This is, like I say, it's like Uncle Corona and Aunt Corona had a baby, and this is...
It's interesting, like when
family member.
When something like this happens, how terminology, like the war on terror, brought so much terminology to the American and world population that they never knew, like the city of Benghazi, for example, or just different places, spaces, names. So now you have so many people commenting on this stuff and using this vernacular. I read something, it's going around the internet. I think I got a fever.
Great.
Just kidding. Going around the internet, some guy basically cracks a joke, says, some of the greatest scientists and doctors in the world are formulating opinions on this problem, but I'm going to listen to my buddy, Rob, I went to high school with, on his Facebook post. That's my paraphrase. You've seen this stuff.
Yeah.
Who do we listen to?
Well,
I mean, it's a cacophony of noise. Of course, if you're not an expert, I don't really give a shit.
Right. So the two sites that I commonly go to are the cdc.gov and aap.org, American Academy of Pediatrics.org. They're going to put up-to-date information. The health department, the individual state health departments, cities, county health departments link to the state links to the CDC. So, local health department websites, the CDC website, and then AAP. AAP has this infectious disease portion, this red book portion that you can go to. So I think any reputable, a lot of universities have, their websites, College of Medicine's, so they're on the cutting edge of research and things like that. So I think they're going to put out good data, good numbers. But this is so rapidly evolving. There isn't a conspiracy. Hey, they just said this number yesterday. Now it's a different number. No one's lying to anybody. It's just, it's on the fly. This stuff
we were talking
changes.
Before we started recording, saying if we don't publish this soon, if this doesn't publish in a week or a couple days, everything that you're about to talk about is going to be old news.
Yeah, I think I spent a lot of time, even Thursday and Friday, and then I got back on those sites today, and I was like, did I write those numbers down right on Thursday? Because it's doubled since then. And I started questioning, some of these, I was just, wow. And so, you're going to get different information, misinformation. No one's trying to mislead anybody. It's just, we're all trying to do this on the fly. It's unprecedented, right? There's never been a pandemic since we've been alive, right?
Right.
Researchers, people are coming together, so people are doing the best that they can on the fly. And if you hear something different today than what you heard yesterday, the person yesterday wasn't necessarily lying to you. That's how rapidly it changed. Or some new report came in, or reporting services got together and, now it matches. So, it definitely is on the fly.
I'll throw one at you that I keep hearing, and it's, here's the flu stats. More people die of the flu than of coronavirus. People keep, I feel like there's a lot of folks just don't want to deal with the inconvenience, and they just want to say, look, man, there's data out there it's kind of like when people say guns kill a lot of people. Well, so do cars. Well, that's a dumb argument. I don't like when pro Second Amendment people say, when they, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure,
it's a phallical argument. I don't give a shit how many cars kill people. We're talking about guns or coronavirus
and the people you're making that argument to probably don't care how many they're not talking about cars, we're talking about guns.
Right.
So I completely understand.
And of course guns kill people, but so do cars don't kill people, people do. But the point is people are saying, well, every year the influenza kills X amount of people. Right. Does looking at such a stat even matter? I think some people, what I'm kind of gathering is, hey, we don't apply a lot of action to that, so why are we applying it to this? Like, what am I?
Well, I think
what am I seeing or missing?
I think where they stop that sentence is, influenza kills more people than coronavirus so far. You don't want to we don't want to get to, Corona won, because that's not good. Mm-hmm. So when they use that right, but there's a vaccine for influenza. Do
you use it every year?
Yeah, we recommend. It's not a required vaccine; it's a recommended vaccine.
I mean, like at your practice, like.
Oh, do I get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Every year. So there's a vaccine for influenza. If you get it diagnosed in the first 2 days, there's a medicine. But even that medicine, I mean, it's not like it's going to cure you. It's going to stop the bug from replicating, but your body still has to kill off the ones that are there. So there, and that's even influenza kills more people than coronavirus so far. But there's medicine and vaccines for those. And it's still a big problem because people either wait too long, to get the medicine, or they don't vaccinate. I have a lot of people that their whole family got the flu last year, and this year they're going to start vaccinating because they're not going to go through that again. But the thing, even with influenza,
the government made the flu really bad last year so that people would be forced to vaccinate.
Right, and then the vaccine companies would, make more money.
And they're going to get the stuff into them so that they can do mind control.
Right, because there's a chip in there.
There is.
Too.
There's actually, I think, 8 chips in the new version.
Oh,
8? I read there was 8 chips.
Geez, last year there were only 5.
Yeah, there's 8 chips in them now.
That's
Sorry.
crazy. That's crazy.
I know that I'm pissing some people off right now.
This is breaking news.
I'm pissing some people off, but I can't.
We have to have some humor in this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I've even had, but the thing, even with the influenza, a lot of people die of the complication of the flu, not the flu itself. And I've had, there's cases every year where medicine is for the flu is started the day somebody gets the symptoms, and they still die of complications of the flu, even though they were treated on day 1. So it's, you don't want to get to the point where Corona wins, especially, it is so new. There's vaccines on the horizon. The cool thing with a vaccine, a potential vaccine for this, from the time they started working on it to the first test trial in a human that was injected into a human was 65 days. And that's like crazy fast. So it's usually months to usually years. They start working on a vaccine, goes through all the testing, it's released to the general public. It's generally a year-long process, years. This was 65 days. So, health departments and doctors and researchers are coming together to, and the FDA is not blocking it. And we're okay, good. Well, let's go. And then this trials out of, I think it originated in France with a common malarial drug, and then a common antibiotic, Zithromax, that have been around for a long time, and they found that that's been helpful in a lot of people. And the one thing that I read this morning was people who tested positive for corona in this study that they did, when they started the malarial drug with Zithromax, within 7 days, I think all of the people in the study were clear of the virus within 7 days.
Wow.
Compared to the people who weren't started on medicine, within 7 days, 50% of those people stopped shedding the virus on their own, but the other 50% still had it.
What was the word you just said, shedding?
Shedding the virus, like when you sneeze, it comes out, it's active, and you can still give it to contagious, you can still give it to somebody else. So, and that, when I think the first report in China was in December. So we're talking, 4 months where all this stuff, 5 months where all this stuff has come to play. And so people are working hard, and we'll get through it. The vast majority of the people will get through it, right? And it's going to be bad. And there's still, I don't think things have peaked yet, because.
What is it that's actually killing people? So people have listened to lots of doctors talking. It's viral pneumonia, right? Is where this leads.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Thankfully, in our area, I don't have personal experience because we just don't have it yet, and hopefully we don't.
You said that we've got 11 cases between our two counties?
Well, I think when I looked this morning, McHenry County had 11 and Winnebago County had 4.
Okay.
The biggest in Illinois, not surprisingly, is Cook County with over 600, I think. But
as we know, those are people that are sick enough that the medical system's doing the test.
Right, that's the big thing.
So talk about that for a second. You said a lot of, and this maybe is not everywhere, but a lot of places are not doing tests until there's pretty significant symptoms pointing to the let's swab this person and send it off.
Right, I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, there's just not, so far there's not a rapid test like the flu. It has to be sent off to the health departments, 3-day kind of turnaround kind of thing. And so there's just not the manpower in the testing facilities and the test. There is a rapid test, I guess, in the works, a 40-minute test kind of thing, which will be helpful. But so that's part of it, is just supply and demand. The other thing is, you know, in kids, there was a recent study that was just released last week out of China. And so this was 18 and under. I'm a pediatrician, so I'm more up to date with that kind of stuff. But 2,100 kids, 18 and under. 90% of those kids had mild to moderate disease, didn't require hospitalization. It was a bad cold. They recovered with little or no treatment at all, and they were fine. They could be at home and recover just like you would from a cold or a mild case of the flu. And 6% of those kids had critical disease, and all but one of those kids recovered. So there, out of the 2,100, there was one death, and that child was 14. They didn't really say, you know, if he or she had underlying medical conditions or things like that, but one out of the 2,100 died. The other interesting thing, and this is where the whole social distancing and I feel fine, I can go to the store, blah, blah, blah. 4% of those kids were actively shedding the virus. They could give it to their grandma, grandpa, the neighbor, whatever, with absolutely no symptoms at all. So I feel fine. I don't have it.
They were off passing it around to the neighborhood.
Right. So you would assume that, I mean, since kids do better with the virus, I mean, I don't know, but what percentage of adults have absolutely no symptoms at all and shedding the virus? I don't know that data. Maybe it's out there, but like, you know, I'm a pediatrician, so I know kid stuff more. But you would assume that it's probably similar. And so, you know, that's where the whole social distancing and trying to be responsible. And even though you feel fine, in theory, you could have it and you could spread it, or you go visit Grandma Helen, you know, no, Grandma, I feel fine. I'm coming over, you know, and give it to Grandma, and she won't do as well. So,
right on.
So it's more about being socially responsible for the masses, you know, and it's hard because if we feel great, I mean, why? I feel great. I can go to the gym, I can go to the store, you know.
Right.
But it's, you know, even all these kids that, you know, went to Florida for spring break, you know, they're hoping that Florida doesn't become Little Italy, you know.
It's even shaped like it, kind of.
Right, exactly. And, you know, in Italy, I mean, it's just crazy. And their demographics are similar to Florida. There's a lot of elderly people. And Italy is just, it's you know, it's spiraled out of control. There were over, I think a week ago Friday, over 6,000 new reported cases in one day, and over 600 deaths in one day. A week ago Friday.
That's heavy, man.
And we don't want that to come to the United States. So, sure, most people, you know, I mean, if you live in New York, it's already there. If you live in the Seattle area, it's already there. California, it's already there. So these healthcare providers and people, I mean, they're at serious risk.
I think that's the problem a lot of people, you and I talked about this for a minute, are not seeing or thinking about. It's everybody around my town, my work is fine. This is bullshit, because they haven't yet heard about hundreds of people dying.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it does seem like overkill. Well, let's hope when this is all over, you still think it was overkill in your community.
Yeah, I've heard somebody say, if all of this works, we'll never know. because we will like not have any. It just everything will just
Right.
kind of fizzle back to normal.
Right, and it shouldn't be like, see, I told you so, nothing really happened. Well, no, it's because everyone did this, and and there's definitely some hardships. I mean, people are gonna lose jobs or go bankrupt or companies go under, or but all this stuff is done for the masses. It's it's not trying to persecute any one group or anything like that. It's just what's in the good of the country. What's in the good of the nation, and to prevent a lot of untimely deaths and stress on the entire nation. You kind of have to do in North Dakota, where there's a week ago there were none. Now every state in the union has one, but in areas that don't have big populations that are hundreds of miles of range, they don't have big population. But you don't want it to be where it's a epidemic in every community. So it's going to be overkill for some, but I guarantee you, if you lived in New York City right now, you would have wished they would have done more sooner, because now it's
spiraling
out of control, and so we don't want Chicago to become that, and then moving closer to you, and then moving closer to we don't want that. So so it's in the Winnebago County and Rockford area. There's only 4 cases. I don't want there to be 4,000 in 2 weeks. So this is bad mojo right now, but we're trying to prevent the big picture.
What kind of research did you bring us? What were you?
I mean, there's just everything. I mean, just some of these numbers were kind of, staggering. Like,
throw some at us.
Well,
this is some CDC data.
Yeah, CDC stuff. I mean, so when I looked this up on the 17th, there were roughly 6,000, and so on March 17th, there were roughly 6,000 cases in the United States and 96 deaths. As of the 20th, that number rose to 15,000 cases and 200 deaths.
So 3 days later, more than double on both those numbers.
Yeah.
In 3 days.
Yeah. I mean, well, and even in
shit, man. So if 3 days later that doubles, what would it be? 30,000.
Yeah.
And 400 doubles again, 60,000.
Yeah,
800
right, so
doubles again, 120,000, 1,600 dead doubles again. And I'm not the scientist in the room.
Right, but we definitely don't want to have when I looked up the data on the 20th, New York had reported cases, 5,000 cases reported. Today, I went on their website, and that number on the 20th, so 2 days ago,
yeah.
Now the number is 10,000.
Wow.
So, just on the 20th, Illinois had
What is the incubation period, or whatever the correct term is, before somebody's symptomatic, if they're showing up in emergency rooms?
The consistent numbers that I see is 2 to 14 days. So that's why the whole quarantine thing for 2 weeks kind of deal comes. I think most, I've read it, and a lot of viruses are like this. They're the most contagious in that first 7 days, but still shedding virus up to two weeks, and you can become sick, 2 to 14 days after you're exposed. So sometimes it takes a while for, once you're exposed, for your body to then show symptoms of it.
Why is this virus so much worse than all the other viruses that we pass around every year?
Because our body's never seen anything like this. So, a lot of viruses.
Because it's novel, new.
Right. Your body's like, what the heck is this? Never seen it before. So you don't have that immune response that you get. Your body's seen, even though you need the flu shot every year, your body's seen the flu for, however old you are, for multiple years. So it kind of has an idea what it's about. So, that's why people who, I never get the flu shot, I never get the flu. Well, I doubt you were never exposed to it. You're just lucky in playing Russian roulette that your body dealt with it, or maybe you weren't ever exposed to it, but I mean, in this day and age, you're probably exposed to it. So your body remembered that and dealt with the disease, or maybe you just had a sniffle, you hadn't developed the 104 temperature, those kind of things. But none of us have any, our body doesn't remember this from last year because it wasn't around last year. So,
I got you.
So it's starting fresh. And, most of the time, because most people have a mild to moderate case of it, right? So I think the number is about 80% are in adults are mild to moderate. In that one study in China, 90% of children were mild to moderate disease.
What do you say about people saying that those are skewed numbers because the Chinese are not telling the real facts? I know as a doctor, you got to go off of what the study says. You can't surmise that. But is there?
Well, I think it's the same here in the United States. I mean, I think we were starting to talk about this earlier. We don't test everybody because there isn't the manpower or the tests, and there's a vast majority of people are going to get over it on their own in their house. So, if you just have to assume right now, if you have a runny nose and cough, or exposed to somebody with a runny nose and cough, that you have COVID, and you should be responsible and stay home. You don't go get tested, because if you do, I mean, you could have influenza, you could have other common, yes, we've been talking, yeah. So you could have other common viruses, but I would just assume that you have it, be responsible, self-quarantine, and if you have mild to, the beginnings of moderate disease, it's a virus. I can't, you come to my clinic, you're just going to expose other people, and I can't give you any medicine. I can't do anything for you.
Just good old-fashioned hot baths,
right?
Soup, take your vitamins,
right.
Get rest.
Right, just like with any other cold virus. And you're just exposing other people potentially to it, other healthcare providers, that kind of thing. And we can't do anything for you anyway. And 80 to 90% chance you're going to recover on your own. So
when should a mom or a dad or a person say, I got to go see the doctor. I think I'm seriously effed up. I think I got the COVID. Right. The bad COVID. Right.
So, obviously higher fever.
What's the number for a kid that you don't want to see?
Well, that's a loaded question.
Ish.
So kids are, especially 2 and under, are a lot different than adults. So, 2 months and under, a fever of 100.4 or greater is a medical emergency. Some people even say 3 months. So, under 2, a temperature of 104 needs to be seen. So you get into that range of temperatures.
So if I got a grade school age child, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year-old kid, at what point is it, shit, my little one I need to go see the doctor because I think they've got the COVID? What symptoms would you be seeing? Of course, a parent needs to know their kid. That's not normal, kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I often talk to parents about the temperature just tells you something's up. How your kid looks and acts gives me more information. So there are certain people that they could have the same cold virus. One kid have a temperature of 101 and one have 103. So, and they have the exact same, it's just their immune system, their immune response. So when I go into a room, I mean, sure, I care that if they have a fever or not, but I care more in the first 5 seconds of looking at that kid. My radar's up. Well, you're bouncing off the wall and climbing on your mom's head and jumping up, you're fine, versus the kid that's, and his temperature, the kid that's sitting on mom's lap not moving they might not even have a fever because mom gave them Tylenol. They might not even have a fever when they're in my office. Now she just tells me. Versus the kid that's every month I'll see a kid and on the chart it says 103 and he's looks completely normal. So temperature by itself doesn't tell me as much information as how somebody looks. So if you, let's say in that age group, you have a temperature of 101, let's just say, and you have a really bad cough and you look bad, especially if you feel short of breath. Sometimes because kids can't move their mucus, they sound worse than they are. So you have to look,
I move their mucus. You're saying they've got unproductive coughs. They're not able to
right, like as adults,
spit it out,
blow their nose, cough and spit stuff out, those kind of things.
They're just sitting there.
Yeah, and that's why they if they would do that, that noise would go away. So, you have to take the temperature and how your kid looks. So if your kid has a high fever, a bad cough, certainly if he has chest pain, he or she has chest pain, respiratory distress in a person, your nostrils flaring out, the divot behind your collarbone, the spaces in between your ribs. So it just looks like you're having a hard time breathing. So those cases, yeah, that's somebody who needs to be seen. If you have a temperature, but you give little Johnny or Sally some Tylenol, it goes down in there. Yeah, they're not their old self, but they're watching TV, they're playing their little games. Even if they have it, they're in that mild to moderate category. They're fine. Now, it might progress, and 4 days later they're not fine. But let's say they look fine, they're acting fine, they got a temperature, runny nose, and cough. They don't fall into the category we're going to test anyway, that we'll be allowed to test. And I'll just tell you, if little Johnny or Sally gets worse, call me, come back, well, that kind of thing. So even if you came that day where little Johnny or Sally look fine, if they start to look bad, that's when I'm going to tell you to come in. So skip that part when they look fine. Don't expose yourself to whoever else in the waiting room or whatever. Don't let your kids, give it to potentially somebody else. But if they act ill, if they look ill, that's the time to have your radar up more and at least call. Call before you come in, because a lot of times we can triage or, do stuff over the phone, try this, and this. If that doesn't get better, then come in, kind of thing. Or the other thing is, depending on, you hope that no adult or kid gets to the point where, you have significant chest pain, shortness of breath, you're starting to get blue. Confusion, you don't want to get to that point.
Level of consciousness stuff from reduced respiratory.
Right. So that's for sure, do not pass go kind of thing. So, but that mild to beginnings of moderate, disease, I'm not going to be able to do much for you. Now, kids who can't, obviously with children, a 6-month-old can't say, hey, mom, my ear hurts. And we know, too, that COVID seems to be COVID. So if you have COVID, you have COVID. So there's a lot of screening stuff that occurs before that. So, like initially, before we can even order the COVID test, a chest x-ray that's negative, an influenza test that's negative, a strep test that's negative. So you have to do some more common. There's still influenza out there. There's still a good chance that you have the flu if you have a high fever and cough. You have influenza, RSV, those kind of things. So we might do some initial screening tests first. If you have a pneumonia, well, you don't have COVID, you have a pneumonia. We're going to treat that. We're going to give you your antibiotics or your shot or whatever. We're going to treat that. If you have influenza, you have influenza. You don't have COVID, you have influenza. And so it seems, at least from the initial data, that if you have COVID, like influenza, a lot of times people have influenza and strep. Most people have COVID and that's it. They don't have COVID and influenza. They don't have COVID and, group A strep pneumonia, the strep throat bug pneumonia kind of thing. So there's some screening stuff.
Just by seeing some of that other stuff, you can say, okay, you've got
this. Yeah. There was actually a girl last week that looked really sick, and I'm like, wow, is this like my first kid with full blown COVID? And so because how sick she looked, I knew in my office I'm not going to be able to do stuff, and I figured she'd probably need a COVID test where they just do it at the hospital, because at that time of day the lab screening area that we send people to was closed. So I knew they were going to have to go to the ER. But in their workup, they did the influenza test, the strep test, and the chest x-ray. Well, it turned out she had a pneumonia. So they treated the pneumonia. They didn't even test her for COVID because, again, it's usually COVID and that's it. Versus, the flu, that could be flu and strep or those kind of things. So, because of the strict criteria, even if I think this kid, wow, he or she falls into the moderate risk category or severe risk category, I still have to call a ID consultant and screen that person through the ID specialist, the infectious disease specialist, because they're on the cutting edge. That's their job to know everything there is to know about COVID. So I might screen and I think the person needs it, but really they don't. So not even everybody I think needs it will get it.
Dude to dude, how anxious are you as a 25-year, quarter of a century?
Why do you gotta say that,
Well,
man?
because it's a good thing. It means that you've got a lot of years underneath your belt.
So I speak from experience.
Yeah. I mean, if you were, no offense, I mean, I've got 6 months of emergency medicine training. I don't have anything to talk about on this other than maybe how to put a mask on.
Right.
Or wash your hands.
Right.
So, that said, 25 years, and this is just, like dude to dude recording and going out to all the peoples. How concerned are you? And I mean, this might change, right? I'm sure 6 months ago or 3 months ago when this first popped up onto the world's radar, you're probably like, oh, interesting. If you saw much at all like the rest of us, if you're working, doing your life.
Those poor people in China.
Right.
Yeah.
As we all do, because
Right.
that's just, the way it works.
Yep.
Oh, there was a hurricane in such and such far off place. Most of us are not my mother that are on their knees praying for those people. We're home to get another beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Todd, I'll see you over there. How anxious are you? How concerned are you? Are you and your doctor buddies sitting around plotting what silo that you built off for your escape as you've immunized everybody with the 8 chips?
And in that silo, we have the cure too.
I knew it. I knew it. Drew, they got the cure.
In the silo.
But until it's called the Ark, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
You guys have to sit there, smoke big cigars, and laugh.
Yep. With our cameras looking out at all the people trying to get
idiots.
So I have a healthy respect for it. I mean, and obviously I'm coming from a different perspective, right? So this is what I signed up for. If all your docs were scared and running or going to their silos, okay, well, that wouldn't, be a good thing. So hopefully, most docs have the same mentality, but that's what I signed up for. So, I have a healthy respect for it. I want to try to the best I can to give current information and my opinion and things like that.
But are you going to bed at night thinking like COVID?
Nope.
No. Are you waking up calling your family saying, "Hey mom, hey bro, some new COVID information"? Are you like, is it taking over your brain like it seems to be taking over a lot of America?
I think it's up in the top 1% of my brain, because it's out there, it's current. That's what's if anything, I'm trying to reassure people because some parents do come in and the kid had a cough or a cold and they think well, what about the COVID? And then so I have to kind of go through, okay, this is what we should look for. We're not going to test little Sally or Johnny today. And so a lot of my stuff is reassurance and knowing when to be concerned and when not to. Mm-hmm. So I have a healthy respect for it. I don't fear it because this is what I signed up for. And it is what it is.
Right.
This is the time, game time, man. It's game time. Fourth quarter, we're down by 20. We're going to win.
Is that what you feel like? We're down by 20?
15. I don't want to be down by 20. In Illinois, at least in McHenry and Winnebago, we're only down by 3.
That's
cool. It's
cool.
there, but it's not, it's not a huge amount confirmed yet.
How about your colleagues? Do you have any colleagues that are maybe a little bit more fixated or hyper, active on the topic? And in your opinion, are they overreacting, underreacting?
I think it's just how, it's how you deal with stress. I'm never one to judge what reaction should be appropriate. It's what
all right, I'll give you another one. I'll throw another one at you. Your buddy you grew up with that you've known your whole life calls you and says, "Hey, man, my family's freaking out. You're the only doc I've got a direct line to." What do I tell him?
I would tell him kind of what we're talking about here is that 80-90% of people recover on their own. It's a bad cold. Some people, it's not even a bad cold. But it can be serious, and you never know. I mean, there are healthy people between 18 and 65 that are in the hospital with COVID. So it can happen.
I lost a friend to the flu that was 18 when I was a kid, and he was otherwise
perfectly healthy. Yeah,
they found him dead.
Yeah. So I mean, it can happen to all of us. So I would have a healthy respect, but I would tell people 80-90% of people recover. Don't need to go to the doctor. Don't need medicine. Maybe a little Robitussin for their cough. Do the responsible thing. Stay at home. If you have a family member, there's 5 people in the house and one person has a runny nose, cough, and fever. I mean, it's in this time, it's not.
Kill them.
Or.
That was a joke.
Or, before that, maybe they should be in their room by themselves. Maybe you should wear a mask when you go in there so the other family members potentially, now a family, they've probably been exposed to it already.
Sure.
But maybe you should take some precautions with that person, and not be a cavalier, it's, just a cold. So I would have a healthy respect for it. I would take more precautions than you would if COVID wasn't out there, because if COVID, it's probably just a cold virus and you'll be fine. That 2-week rule kind of thing. And so, so most people recover. Most people don't have an issue. If you have underlying, any age, if you have underlying heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, you're immunocompromised, have a low immune system for whatever reason, you should have, a healthy fear of it. I don't think it's a panic thing you need to do. And, but you need to take some precautions and so you can do everything possible not to get it. So
I know very sane, intelligent people that are treating this like the Spanish flu. Like, I'm talking like mail that comes to their house is dropped in a box and they're freaking running wands over it with ultraviolet. Anybody that comes to their house is not allowed in. They come home, strip. I've known a couple people to say this. They're basically stripping in their garage. When I did clinical time in the ER, there was a few nights I stripped my clothes down in the garage and didn't bring them into the house.
Right.
Shoes, stayed in the garage and I blasted them clean.
No, and there are doctors and nurses, especially at the hospital doctors and nurses that are in, their scrubs or whatnot that, leave. If they come home in those same clothes, they do leave them in the garage and stuff. So, sure. If that's what helps you sleep at night, is that the best thing to do? I wouldn't tell you not to do it. If that makes you feel good and helps you and your family sleep well at night,
so by
then do
what
it.
you're saying, though, it's not that it protects you and makes you better. It's not a bad thing, but you're not saying everybody should be stripping in their garage.
Definitely not everybody.
Yeah.
If you're a doctor that worked in the ER all day, 12-hour shift, if they even come home in the same clothes, they probably left their scrubs at the hospital. But if they did, sure, leave it in the garage.
You doing any extra precautions being around?
Yeah, so depending on the symptom, depending on the age, sure, I go into a room with masks, gloves. I haven't had anybody that, because of the screening, I haven't had anybody that from day one is at severe risk. The one girl that I talked about that I thought might have, since I knew I'm just sending her to the ER, I was more of a triage person than an office visit because I knew you were going to the ER. So I went in there with a mask. I stood 6 feet away from her, probably more, and I talked to the mom about it, and then I sent them to the ER. So so we take precautions. But in the screening thing, we've had, hopefully not anymore, but we had one adult, they went through the screening questions. No, blah, blah, blah. When the doctor went in there and asked them the same kind of questions, I just got off a plane from New York. I was in New York. I was overseas.
So the nurse...
So they lied. No, they lied because they wanted to see the doctor. So one thing you can't do is lie about your symptoms, lie about your travel, lie about your exposures, those kind of things, because you think, I don't want to go through that COVID test. I just want my ear hurts. It's probably just an ear infection. Well, 5 years ago maybe, or actually in November, September it probably was, but not now. So that person potentially exposed, because all the docs and nurses that went in there before they got that history weren't in their big hazmat suits. So if that person did test positive, that person just knocked out a whole practice for 14 days.
Sure. Okay.
So you got to be honest with your symptoms and stuff too. So don't, try to get antibiotics because all I got is a cold. But when through the screening we find out, well, you are at high risk. So anyway,
how do I get access to your special silo?
Just ask. I'll show you where it is.
Got like a handshake
Right.
thing.
I used to have a handshake, and now it's a series of this.
Well, no, we're immune.
Yeah. Right. Nothing will happen to us. We're gun guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're tough.
How do you feel about that, just from that perspective? I mean, people have gone nuts. My friends that are in the business, ammunition supplier, I told them, not that I'm some knower of all truth, but I'm like, hey, man, I hope you got plenty of stuff. This was a couple weeks ago. He's like, we're going to be fine. This is dumb. And they sold, he's loading and keeping their presses going, but they're running out of components. They put 24,000 rounds of 223 that they had loaded the night before up on their website. They were gone in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and my fear is that, so you and I as gun guys, I mean, you obviously more than me.
I'm not a gun guy.
What are you?
I am.
You're in the gun culture. You're in the gun club.
I'm not. I'm in the freedom culture, liberty.
Liberty and freedom. Okay, us in the freedom and liberty culture.
Yeah. I don't want to be identified as a guy that's attached to tools. That's
right.
Yeah. I mean, are you a scalpel and stethoscope guy?
Yes. I carry them around all the time.
I don't see shit.
I got it in my truck.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not on you. My gun's on me.
Oh, okay. All right, fine. I don't know the proper lingo. My fear is, you and I weren't in those lines, right? So, I mean, you way more than me, but people that have experience, they're not in those lines because they had.
We've trained and we have what we need.
Right, and we know how to use our tools if needed and those kind of things. So we weren't in those lines. So who was in those lines? Somebody that's not, prepared. I don't know. I think they don't go to the range a lot because they don't.
I don't like the word prepper, but I mean I am prepared. That's why I just was talking with some guys today. We're doing these first-time gun owner kind of online trainings, been helping some guys for free, and we're going to do more of those on the YouTube for free for people. But guys seem to be developing these crazy notions like get green tips because they're armor piercing. Who the hell are you shooting, man? Like, what is happening?
Right.
And they're like, oh, Mick, you just don't see what's coming on here. Like the whole house of cards is about to come down. And I'm like, I mean, yes, you can like let your brain kind of go into that rabbit hole.
But my fear is, and I mean, people. I know, a local gun shop owner that there is a run on ammo and guns. And a lot of these people are first-time buyers, and now you're at far more risk of injuring yourself or somebody in your house with your gun that you don't know anything about than you are from dying of COVID. Mm-hmm. And so my fear is that a lot of these first-time owners clean their gun with one in the chamber and, don't have it locked up because, I have to rack the slide first, but their 5-year-old gets it and racks the slide.
I do think a lot of them are not concerned about, they're thinking that this is the narrative I keep hearing. Society is starting to fracture. Police won't be able to keep the community safe. People won't be able to go to the grocery store because of this lockdown. The virus will expand to the point where people are not going to have necessities to take care of their family. Internet's going to collapse, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, I'm coming to your house to get what you have.
Well, here's the thing. Since this was first reported in December in China, there's a vaccine on the way, and there's 2 medications that are tried and true that seem initially work together to, at least in one study, clear the virus within a week. So I doubt that's going to
You're thinking that America and the world as a whole has mobilized in a common front to attack this mother effer, and we're going to reach a critical mass stage where science will prevail.
Right. Before it gets, to that point.
I kind of think so too. Like, we put man on the moon. Some of you are like, well, supposedly.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right.
We put man on the moon. We figured out how to defeat gravity with flight. We've vaccinated against the scourge of things that we no longer have.
To most people, we've proved that the Earth is not flat.
That's true.
To most people, but
That guy, I talked to him.
You did before you
guy.
Before he went up?
Before he went up? No, a while ago I sent him an email to get him on the podcast, and then I was like, just turn into like me, just, and I thought there's no good that'll come from this.
This could not turn out well.
No.
So you're right. So I'm an optimist.
I am too, though.
And boy, there are tons of good doctors, researchers, people out there on the front lines that are, collecting data, doing their due diligence, putting their, there's doctors who have died. There's nurses that have died treating people. So, that's...
Dude, I spent a couple days, went into a deep dive into the 1918 flu epidemic, people call the Spanish flu. Mm-hmm. And one study, a very well-done study, thinks it came from a pig pen in Kansas, United States, the state of Kansas, and it spread to some farmers. It got into the local army barracks, and kind of propagated the world. And some of the freaking stories of hospitals where they were reading in one study, they were going through the doctor's notes, and first, as people were dying, they'd list the name, age, symptoms, when they died, etc. It got to the point where it was just name and like date, because people were dying so fast. There were corpses in alleys, there were some stories in major cities, because this time during the Industrial Revolution, as most people remember from history, poor people that worked in factories, man, were basically owned by the company store, and they're like 8-10 families living in these rooms. They had no space to put bodies when they die, and a lot of the times the family members were so ill, being sick themselves, they just throw a blanket over grandma or grandpa or dad, because it took everybody that got it, not everybody, but it wasn't just sick people that died.
Right.
But some of the stuff they were talking about, the doctors and nurses, was that was so striking to me. Somebody would get sick, one of the workers, Nurse Ratchet, showed symptoms at 4 p.m. She was dead by 9 the next morning. Like, what the hell?
Right.
That's scary shit. And I know we're not talking about anything like that, but that's what people keep, I think, comparing this to.
Right. And medicine's advanced a little bit, since then. And
hygiene.
Hygiene, you can socially isolate, like you were saying, there are, there are areas where you have 15 people in a house kind of thing, but, now we're not all, a factory doesn't have a barracks where they put all their employees, kind of thing, where they can sleep. So we advance. We don't, here's the bottom line. We want to avoid all that
This
stuff.
shit didn't exist.
Right.
Well, actually, It did, but just not gelled.
Right. Just alcohol.
Yeah.
And, so I mean, I'd like to
sell you this for $70 too. You can afford it.
70. I was going to give you 80, but
dude,
okay.
So some of the people we do business with are in China, and they are constantly offering to sell us clothing, hats, stuff like that. We bought things like patches and things like that. None of that stuff's made here. I got a message from the company that makes textiles. None of these clothes come from China. I buy them from a maker here in our state, but hey Mick, writing in good, fairly decent translation, but we've corresponded enough over the years, I usually can understand it. I got a list of stuff you might be interested in. What the hell is this? I opened it up. It was masks, gowns, gloves, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this factory literally sells patches, hats, shirts. So I open up the PDF, and they got like 3M, like 1860, the blue N95 masks that normally you could buy from like a construction supply house or medical supply house for 40 cents, 30 cents for like $5, a piece. So I'm like looking at it, and minimum quantity 1,000, and I'm like, are people really buying $5,000 worth of masks? So I emailed her back. I'm like, price seems a little steep. Like I'm not buying any. I just wanted to like engage.
Right.
And she's like, that's what we're paying for. I'm like, no, you're not.
Right. That's what you're paying for.
Right. Like, no, you're not.
They went from whatever 2 cents to
There's
75 cents.
A company on Facebook selling 10 garbage masks. They look like high-end surgical masks that probably would be 50 cents or something. 10 of them for $108.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah. But, I mean, that happens with, guns and ammo, too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially ammo. I mean, it's just crazy. Like,
A company emailed me, hey, we got ammo in stock. Share this with your customers. And I opened it up. They're selling 400 rounds of 223. I think it was $540.
and a month ago, what was that?
150, if that. So my guy, Supervel, just to give him a plug, just put an email out. Hey, our 223 was whatever it was. It's like about $300 for 1,000 rounds. That's how much it was. That's how much it will be tomorrow.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, if his component prices go up, that is something he'll have to pass on because the bullet and primer and powder makers, control that. But I think that when people realize you can't shoot holes in
COVID,
just like you can't shoot holes in diabetes or heart disease or any of the other things that people that hoard in guns and ammo for don't take care of themselves.
Well, I was actually pleasantly surprised yesterday. I had to work, and then on my way home, I just went by the local Myers kind of thing and grocery store, and there were surprisingly like a normal parking lot full of cars.
I noticed that too.
There wasn't like the hoarding going on. I actually went in to this Myers and there wasn't very much, but there was actually toilet paper on the shelves. I'm
noticing and talking, because of our social media, we get messages from people all over the country, and this is a good spot to spit this message out. Stop spreading lies. A dude sent me a message, hey, in California, they're stopping cars and asking why they're driving. My friend was cited for being out without having, some government paperwork.
Right.
And I'm like, where did it happen? What was the citation? What department? And then he admitted that he was kind of just passing on a rumor. And then he did tell me the county. I called a friend of mine that's a copper in that county. He's like, absolutely not.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of that. But I am hearing from a friend of mine in the Kentucky, Tennessee area, right on the border, pretty rural, said he is noticing in the parking lots Illinois plates and other areas from surrounding states driving to this more rural area to stock up.
Really?
That's kind of an interesting thing. And then I've also heard in hard hit areas, like here, like you said, nobody's got friends dying from this yet.
Right.
So maybe we haven't had that full freak out.
Right.
But other areas, folks are sending me pictures of stores like, sorry, we don't have anything to sell you.
Yeah. And I saw an article from a pediatrician that's in the Bronx or something, and she's overwhelmed and overrun, and she has a family, and she was talking about the dilemma that she had. Do I keep my practice open?
Take care of my family,
or do I take care of my family, and I have children and that kind of thing, and they're so overrun that right. So we have I'm sure some of even your listeners, well, you guys don't, you don't know what it is, and we don't know what it's like there, and we might have some different opinion, but I think the overall message that we're trying to give is we don't want it to be like New York, we don't want it to be like the Seattle area or places in California, so we're trying to give as much information as we can so it doesn't get to so just because you're in a state and your county has no cases, don't think that you're not gonna have a case. You might not have a case that's been documented, but the way things are going, Joe Schmo who sneezed once could very well have had it. It very well could be in your county, and if it's not this week, it could be next week. So, definitely different perspective from where you're coming and how many cases and with anything, right? So, but we just sometimes the overkill in places where there isn't a lot is to prevent that. We don't want to be living in a community where, friends and neighbors are dying like you would be if you lived in New York or Seattle or Cook County. Thank goodness there haven't been a lot of deaths, but there people have died in Illinois that, someone knew someone. So
I've been waking up telling myself, and this is not something new for me, but I've been, you kind of go through patterns in life, right? Where you play golf and now you don't play golf anymore. You shoot guns. And I've had like different thought patterns that come and go. And I've been lately revisiting this when I get up. What's my goal for today? Like I'm really focused on it. I gotta talk to Drew about the video. I gotta confirm the appointment with the doctor. I've gotta, do this, do that. And then like, what do I want to see done by the end of today? And one thing I don't want to do is waste a bunch of time watching bullshit news, because that's not doing anything other than getting me spun up. And then I think, like, what else is important? We touched on it. I want to stay physically healthy, not just now, but every day.
Right.
So I work out. I have not like a diet plan, but I make sure I'm eating good foods. And then I have a couple beers at night and relax, and we light a fire and kick back and talk about the day. But if I'm all stressed out, I'm probably not going to sleep. I've heard a bunch of people tell me I'm not sleeping. Well, that's not good, because now you're going to get sick.
Now your immune system is down, right? Stress and fatigue.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. You have to wake up with a purpose and a goal, and like I told you, have a healthy respect for it. Don't fear it, respect it, or a healthy fear. Just like a kid should have a healthy fear of authority. So respect it.
I did not at all.
At one point, back then, your mom could spank you.
Yeah.
Will whip you with the belt behind the shed.
It's probably like anything that could be potentially dangerous. A car, a firearm, alcohol.
Right. A healthy respect for it. A healthy fear. You even see it in seasoned gun owners and shooters. The more comfortable you get with it, you kind of have to remind. We've all had some time where we're like, oh crap, I can't believe I just did that. Or how you gripped it, or like, whoa, that's like a rookie mistake.
Right.
Because, and then that brings us back to reality, and hopefully that didn't happen for another couple of years. But you have to have a healthy respect, fear of things without letting it control you. Because there's only so much you can do, right? So do those things.
You too shall die.
Well, we're all online, right? We just don't know we're in line. So
there is some very stoic thoughts you can have about that. I was in the shower this morning, and that crossed my mind, like, we're all like little ants running around this planet, and at the end, like, we're stardust, man. Like, all of my energy thinking about COVID and can I get masks or anything else. The people I think about the Civil War, how horrible it must have been to be alive on either side, or during the Inquisition in Spain. Just pick a time.
Right.
Russia in the early 1900s, or China in the 1950s.
And people led that for months or years, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't like a virus
times.
That's how you live for 10, 15, 20 years under that stress or whatever. I think, wash your hands, cough into your elbow bump people.
Now wait, if I cough into my elbow, but then I bump you with this elbow.
It's a different side though, right?
How about we don't even bump? How about we just nod? Namaste. That's what me and my sister started doing, namaste. We do.
Well, that would be the better safe than sorry.
So let's bring that up. I'm not going to elbow bump you anymore, Drew.
Just nod.
Namaste.
The
spirit in me is also in you.
That's good. See, and I send some good vibes too. So it's a double thing. Right. Yeah.
Parting words. If the people watching and listening never get to meet you in person, never see you again, never cross your way on this earthly plane, what would you leave them with?
I think a healthy respect. Love thy neighbor. You might not be thinking, why do I have to do that? Because I'm fine. I'll be fine. But the reality of it is, you could infect somebody else. So have a healthy respect for your neighbor. Do your due diligence. If you have congestion, cough kind of stuff, stay home. call your doc when you need. A lot of us have gone to telemedicine, so we can do things over the
It's
phone
worked for
and
the
stuff.
military and such for years, right?
Right. So why not do it now? So, I think have a healthy respect for it. Don't fear it. Help other people in your community. Don't hoard things. It's going to be all right. We're going to, 80, 90% of it, more than that, are going to be fine.
That's pretty scary, though, when you think about 10% of the people. I mean, I know it's not 10% of total population, but...
Right. And hopefully those numbers just, keep going on. We don't want them to go the other way. So do your due diligence. Respect your neighbor. Respect the new virus. Science is on its way. It's not a conspiracy theory.
Look into the camera and say it's not a conspiracy theory, because people don't believe your ass.
It's not a conspiracy.
That's too pretty of a man to be telling the truth.
I'm lying. That's right. We're doing our best. Information changes, just like the stuff I gave you. If I gave a number today that's wrong, I'm sure somebody can find a number I gave today was wrong. I swear I didn't lie. I mean, when I looked it up, that was the right number.
He's also too pretty to not be lying.
Right, I'm lying. I'm a drug rep, actually, for one of those. Wait, is that on? Oh, shit, that was recorded?
That's awesome. When we have people come down and do one of these recordings, we have them sign the wall. So sign. Let's do a doctor's signature. Let's see a doctor's signature.
Oh, God. Should I do my best?
Wherever you want. Light it up.
All right.
What the shit? Write the date. That's the only way I'm going to be able to ever tell who it was.
It's today 23rd.
22.
22.
20. Nice.
All right.
I have no idea who that was.
Now, are you going to touch it?
Enjoy the pen.
Thanks. Finally someone gives me a pen. Sweet.
You're not allowed. My father-in-law worked for the pharmaceutical companies. True story.
Fine.
We hope that you guys got a little something out of this. There's no like market on good information, but I think it's good to be reminded from time to time of some sane thoughts. Like, we can't control everything. Only thing you can control is what you're thinking about, what you're doing, and like Doc just said, good actions. Get sleep, eat good, be good to your neighbors, have a good attitude, stay home if you don't have to go out. This is not fear-mongering. My wife and I haven't spent this much time together. I'm just joking. We're going on walks. We're lighting fires in the evening.
So there's a positive spin to
tipping
this.
wine. I'm all
right. So it's a positive spin. So have a healthy respect for it, healthy fear. Just but do your part.
If you got to practice, if people are in the Rockford area and they need a pediatrician, how do they find you?
Yes, part of the UW health system, Swedish American. So Swedish American has a website and that kind of stuff. I'm in the works of putting up a Facebook, IG page, kind of thing, a doctor-related thing.
Dr. Sweeto.
That's Doc Billy. No, I already named it Doc Billy. So,
Does it say William?
No, Doc Billy.
No, I mean, like if somebody's looking you up legitimately to bring
William. Yeah, William. That always reminds me of getting in trouble from my mom, though. But
William?
Yes, Dr. William Sidney Renk.
Oh, okay. Sidney.
R-E-N-K. So, Sidney.
So, Dr. William Renk, Rockford, Illinois.
Right. Yep.
They can look you up, find you.
Yep.
I don't see a ring, so if ladies are out there that thought, hey, Dr. William Renk, Dr. Willie.
Yeah.
Dr. Willie. Yeah. The doctor's in, ladies.
Yeah, let's not even go there.
Okay, we won't go there. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this or any of the other podcasts that we put out here, share them with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, I don't even like saying it because it makes me sound cliche as hit the like and subscribe and blah, blah, blah buttons. Do that stuff because Drew works harder than any person I know in this business, editing, cutting, literally, he's got if anybody's ever going to die from computer screens and whatever's coming off of them, it won't be him, but it could be somebody that's in his job because there's it's a wall of screens and
Awesome.
Be safe. Don't get the COVID. After saying that, I need to pump. Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@carrytrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. training at CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.